So you're playing Genshin, you get Gaming, and you watched his basics guide that came out yesterday. And now you're wondering how to build him kind of more mid-game to late game. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to look at Gaming and how to build him for the mid to late game. So to refresh, to recap, we are going to look at the Gaming that we are using in this video. So my Gaming is level 70 out of 70 with 13,600 HP, 1,700 attack, and 40 EM. His crit split is 57.7 over 140, 127 energy recharge, and 46% pyro damage with the goblet. For weapons, I am running a level 80 R1 Serpent Spine. For artifacts, he is running a 4-piece Marshmallow Hunter. For constellations, he is C2. C1 means that he's going to heal himself upon using his burst, or like in the rotation of using his burst. C2 is going to be that if you overheal him, if you have overflow healing, he gets an attack buff. That's the only two differences that my Gaming is going to have. So now let's go look at probably the most standard kind of team with Gaming. Now, because of how Gaming's skill and burst work with his HP fluctuating, he works really, really well with Furina. Not only is he going to contribute to her fanfare points with that fluctuating HP, but he is also going to enjoy having her little minions for the vapors. He will enjoy the little minions for Vaporize, as well as enjoying her fanfare buffing. Mixing him with Bennett is also phenomenal. Bennett and Furina go together super well. Gaming likes Bennett's C6 Pyro infusion, or well, he doesn't hate it, shall I say. He doesn't necessarily like it, but it doesn't hurt him to have it, right? He also enjoys the healing that comes from that. Furina likes the healing that comes from Benny. He also likes the attack buff that comes from Benny. Now, Kazuha is going to be the quote-unquote flex slot, because there's really two characters that you can slot into this. One of them is going to be Kazuha, giving a swirl, VV shred, as well as giving a damage bonus over to your other characters with the element that he swirls, or, which the better option, is going to be Cloud Retainer. I do not have Cloud Retainer. If I had a Cloud Retainer, I would slot in Cloud Retainer instead of Kazuha. Cloud Retainer heals, and you get the VV shred, and you get the plunging damage bonus, which is what Gaming wants, or Gaming loves about Cloud Retainer. So then you get Furina Fanfare, plunge damage bonus, and VV swirl, which would outweigh having Kazuha. This team, you can pretty much take out Gaming and put in a lot of other characters. This is the exact team that I run with my Dia, and it works really well with her. So you can take Gaming out and you can slot pretty much anybody into this team. So this team is really good for a lot of characters other than just Gaming. Also, Furina, her little minions will be able to also get vaporizes off of Gaming applying Pyro, reapplying their own Hydro, so that way Gaming can get the vaporize. So it's a very good back and forth between Furina getting vapes, Gaming getting vapes, Furina getting vapes, Gaming getting vapes. You do want to make sure that you go at a good pace though with his plungings, to where you will be able to get those vaporize reactions. Now we are going to look at the artifact portion of the artifact grinding hell guide. And to do that, we are going to show the effect of the 4-piece Marshmallow Hunter. So as we looked at before, his crit split was like 57% crit rate, right? If we go over here and we use his skill to decrease and then increase his HP, getting that fluctuation that Marshmallow Hunter needs to activate, his crit split is now going to be 93.7% over 140. Obviously, having the 4-star circlet would be better to have a 5-star, and it would be even better, but I ran this domain for so long and I couldn't get one. So now let's look at the individual artifacts, and let's talk about what substats and main stats you want on these things. So first, let's look at his flower. ER, crit rate, crit damage, attack percent. This is probably as close to a perfect artifact substats that you can get. Yes, some EM would be great. Having that ER to where you'll be able to use his burst more often. That attack percent, crit rate, crit damage, perfect, flawless. Could have rolled better, yes. The plume, crit damage, crit rate, attack percent, defense. If this flat defense had been ER or EM, another perfect one. Yes, again, it could have rolled better. It didn't roll necessarily bad, but it could have rolled better. For the sands, attack sands, energy recharge, crit rate, crit damage. This is the possible one to get every single stat that you want. If that defense had been EM, mwah, chef's kiss, flawless. It would have been amazing to have EM instead of defense. For the goblet, of course, we're gonna do Pyro Goblet. This one's not too good. It's got crit rate, it's got EM, it's got attack percent. It has no crit damage, right? Having a little bit more crit damage here would have been great, or having a little bit of ER, something like that, right? This is just like my second or third Pyro Goblet, is I've only really got one good Pyro Goblet, and that stays on Dia. For the circlet, yes, 4-star. Crit damage, no crit rate on it. ER was okay. This is a horrible, horrible piece. This is a piece that you don't want to use, right? But I had to. I had to save this one. This is the only crit damage circlet I've gotten on Marshmallow Hunter. So I'm stuck with it, right? And whenever I'm making these videos talking about like, oh, try and get these stats, try and do this, of course we can only do so much, right? The game gives us what it can or what it wants to, and we just kind of got to deal with it. So whenever somebody's doing a review and they're saying you got to get this stat up, take it with a grain of salt, because you can't control what the game gives you, right? So now let's go talk about two other possible teams with Gaming. The first one they're going to talk about is going to be a forward melt team, where we're going to have Gaming try and do as many melt reactions as he can to get the most damage out of him. So for that, we're going to use Gaming, Layla, because in Layla we trust, Rosaria, and Bennett. Now, this is also an all 4-star team. With this, I wanted to throw in an all 4-star team, right? Something that if you don't have Farina, you don't have Kazuha, you can still do this team. So we have Gaming. It's going to be doing most of our damage. Layla with 4-piece tenacity, giving us a shield to kind of help with survivability. Which is going to be much easier to do not having Farina, but the 4-piece tenacity is really good as well as her burst, giving off some cryo application. Rosaria using her skill, using her burst to get a ton of damage as well. So Gaming's going to be getting at some good damage. Rosaria is also going to be getting some good damage with the reverse melts. Bennett, of course, being healing, buffing, all of that fun stuff. Bennett's actually going to be hitting fairly high in this whenever he gets some of these melts. So this is going to be a good 4-star team. It also kind of allows you, having Rosaria here, to run even less crit rate and more crit damage on Gaming, because Rosaria's passive will share some of her crit rate over to Gaming. Plus, if you've got double cryo resonance, right, because we've got cryo resonance and we've got pyro resonance, if Gaming is essentially, if Gaming is melting, if he causes a melt reaction, it will always crit. Even without Rosaria, just having the cryo resonance, if Gaming makes a melt reaction, it will crit. Right now he's at 93%. If he hits an enemy that has cryo on them, that's another 15% added to it. We are now over 100%. Rosaria's crit sharing makes it go even higher. So we could theoretically have like 30% crit rate on Gaming. Get the other 36% from Marshmallow Hunter, taking that up to 66, plus another 30%, 15% from cryo resonance. We start getting into the 80%, and then whatever Rosaria shares over, we can still get up to 90%, starting at only 30 on Gaming, and get everything else into crit damage. That will only work running double cryo, and it will make sure that every melt that Gaming causes is still going to crit, but we can get his crit damage super, super, super high doing that. So it is kind of more of a niche team. We don't have grouping like from Kazuha. We do have Gaming getting damage. We have Rosaria also getting damage. We have a shielder, we have a healer. It's a very balanced, rounded team that if you do correctly, Gaming's melt reactions are going to do on par as what our last team was doing. Yes, we don't have Farina Fanfare, which does start to hurt us because Farina Fanfare can take it up a little bit higher. But having this melt reactions, we're still spreading out some of the damage, but Gaming's still doing a lot of it. We still have, in my eyes, this team is more balanced, more survivability. The other team is like, I gotta kill things as quick as possible, which for the Abyss might be better. Now, to end out the video, we're gonna talk about another team, and that is gonna be like a Burgeon team with Gaming, where we're gonna be using Farina again, Gaming, Nahida, and Coco. Coco giving some healing, not a ton. My Coco is not built for healing. She's built on EM for whenever Nilu comes out, but having this will allow, we want to run double hydro because we don't want to cause burning, but using this, you want to build Gaming full EM, which we'll talk about some weapons to help with that in a little bit. And you're going to kind of allow Farina's minions to get the vaporized instead of Gaming trying to get the vaporized, right? We want Farina to vaporize off the enemies to get rid of burning, to allow for blooms, for Gaming to burgeon them. Now, you do have to be very, very careful of your HP because Gaming's HP fluctuates a lot with this already, and now we're just going to damage him a lot with Burgeon. So you do need to kind of be weary of that and make sure that you're mitigating that a little bit with like Coco's jellyfish. But another thing that will help mitigate that, you're going to be wanting to use Gaming's burst a ton, so you need to have ER in the substats. You need to have a lot of ER in the substats. So that way you can just use his burst off of cooldown to cause the burgeonings reliably. So in which if you have C1 will heal him even more. So you can do this. You can use him and Coco to kind of help Farina's fanfare points. Farina will like the fanfare points for getting the vaporize off of Gaming. This whole team is a very interesting way of using Gaming. It is possible. It is doable, as you can see going on behind me. It is such an interesting team. Almost makes me want to try it. However, I wouldn't be able to use Farina, Nahida, or Coco for this team. And that makes me not want to try it anymore. So, because those characters, again, are already allocated to like Nilu and Dia. So this could be a really, really fun team, though. You could obviously swap out Farina for somebody else, or somebody else that does off-field hydro damage, or you could actually swap them in for somebody that does cryo damage, like Rosaria or Ganyu or somebody like that. You could do that instead. So, speaking of building Gaming, EM, we would do a different artifact set. We're not going to touch on that, but like Gilded or Instructor, if you want to do a 4-star, or Fopple, Flowers of Paradise Lost, I would probably go in that order. Fopples is technically your highest damage, but it's not as efficient. Gilded is just going to be your best, building full EM with ER in the substats. So to help with that too, let's talk about weapons, because there is a couple of weapons that could be really, really good for regular Gaming or Burgeon. So I have been running Serpent Spine on Gaming this whole time. Serpent Spine is one of, if not Gaming's best weapons. The crit rate is excellent, excellent, excellent. But let's look at some other options. You do, of course, have the Cardboard Claymore from the Melusine event, which gets up your energy recharge, which is going to be good. It also gets up your attack, as well as getting it up again by however many Melusines you've helped. So this can be a very, very good option. You can use Wolf's Gravestone. It's going to give him a much higher attack, but I do believe that Serpent Spine is going to outperform because of the crit rate. Rain Slasher is also phenomenal. This one will work regular Gaming Vaporize and Melt Gaming and Burgeon Gaming. And then, of course, you do have Blood Tainted Greatsword, which has more EM than Rain Slasher, but a much lower base attack. I would do Blood Tainted if you were specifically doing Burgeon. I would do Rain Slasher if you're doing Burgeon and or Vape Melt. So Rain Slasher is probably going to be your best overall, no matter what team you throw him in. But Serpent Spine will be his best in slot for vapes or melts. Now that is going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, do be sure to leave it down in the comments. Myself or somebody else will be sure to answer it, and I'll see you in the next one.